Welcome back, everybody, to Salt and Burn This, a supernatural rewatch podcast. My name is Sami.
I'm Valerie. I have to clear the coffee out of my sinuses now. That's not fair. There's one way to get coffee in.
It goes straight to the brain that way, I think.
Right? It's a little painful, but maybe it's worth the trip. Oh, we didn't map quest the last episode.
I know. I forgot to look. I don't know if it was
my sense. There was no Chiron. I'm just going to say it was Wisconsin because their license plate, the Ghostfacers license plates, were Wisconsin license plates, and they didn't disprove us in any other way. So
true. That's good detective work.
Thank you. I do love that we have continuing podcasts so we can catch up to all the things we missed on the previous podcast.
Yes.
we have an opportunity to correct ourselves. Like that moment where I pointed out Bobby's hat and I was so sure that his hat was a message. And it wasn't. Still kicking myself over that one. Did you know? Now, I know nothing about how things wind up on the internet. I mean, you say it out loud and then somehow it winds up on the internet, right? Even if your phone wasn't on, boom, whatever you were talking about. Salt and Burn This is attached to the Supernatural Wiki.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's fun.
Yep.
Super fun. I'm gonna look at this. Was it where was it? In the library?
It actually was, if you just Google Salt and Burn This, it comes up, one of the links you can click on is a Supernatural or a Super Wiki link. I didn't dive much further than that, other than to see that there is nothing written about us.
Oh.
But we're there.
Oh, that's cool. I see us.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, we've made it.
Thanks, Supernatural Wiki.
But again, there's nothing written about us. There's no discussion.
No, it's just what it is. And it links, they must have found you on Twitter because that's what it links to. It links to Twitter and then our listen links. It's under the fandom category. Subcategories here cover fan fiction, fan art, fan vids, podcasts,
dun, dun.
And meta. So we are under podcasts. Holy shit, there's a lot of them.
Oh no!
There are 44 entries in this.
But are they current? And how far did they get?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I also clicked on
my god, there's one called Mensch of Letters. That's hilarious.
That's hysterical. That's hysterical. Well, the Then and Now podcast responded to somebody on Twitter about, oh my gosh, is this thing still going? And Richard Spade Jr. Responded, it's like, the show ran for 15 years. Yeah, we're going to be around for a while doing this podcast. And so I responded to that by saying, challenge accepted. Oh, and by the way, I also responded to something Chad Lindbergh posted a while back, Ash. And he didn't respond back, but he did heart my response.
Nice. You're getting there.
Or said something like touche or something like that. I was like, yes. Took a screenshot.
Awesome.
I'll cling to whatever I can.
Right.
Little nuggets are thrown our way.
Yeah. Season 3, Episode 14, Long Distance Call. Calls from dead loved ones lure the living to suicide. For the brothers, it's a classic exercise in demon hunting logic. But Dean loses his scientific detachment when he receives one of the calls from John. Written by Jeremy Carver and directed by Robert Singer.
Fun fact that I put together about this particular episode has nothing to do with anything.
Okay.
This is season 3, episode 14, 3.14. Pi Day. Mention of it
Not
anywhere.
even a little bit.
But now this is a fun fact that was somebody else found at the same time, that this particular episode is semi similar to a Twilight episode. Twilight Zone episode from 1959. It was the 58th episode. This is the 58th episode, and both of those episodes were about like phone calls from the dead.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that cool?
That is really cool.
Completely random. I'm sure it had like very circumstantial, but I was like, I'll take it. Again, another 50 cents. I shall take that.
I barely remembered this episode. Like watching it, I'm like, this is like a whole new day for me. I remember the guy who works in the basement of the phone company, like
pretty memorable.
Yeah. And I remember because when I was watching it at one watch through, the guy that I was watching it with was complaining that they were mispronouncing the name of the town because locals in Ohio call Milan Milan.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That is dumb. Like he was, this is how I know they didn't actually do it in Ohio or didn't do their research in Ohio because it's called Milan. And I was like, no, it's Milan. Dumb Americans turned it into Milan.
Right.
Like if I were to see that name of a town somewhere, I would call it Milan, just like I would. I don't know if it's in Ohio, but there's somewhere in America called Versailles, but they call it Versailles.
Stop.
It might be Ohio. In fact, actually, when we were approaching this episode, I went and looked up a list of town names in America that are pronounced incorrectly. Like they're pulled from...
I love the internet.
Yeah. Just a second. Because I felt like there were at least 3 in Ohio. And I think there were. I don't have that list on me at the moment. I did like save it somewhere and I can't remember where I saved it. But
one of them in North Carolina drives me crazy. It's Fayetteville. I'm like, it's spelled Fayette.
Oh,
Fayette.
like Fayette, like
Lafayette.
ETTE at the yeah.
But they all pronounce it Fayetteville. I'm like, it's Fayette, but okay.
The list is very long. So I encourage everyone to go look it up if you want to be angered. If you're like one of those people.
But American idiocy,
yes. And you know what? This was even before I really knew any Italians. I barely knew any Italians. Now I'm inundated with them. But even then, I was still like, no. This is Milan.
Yeah. And that's not a fight over like pecan or pecan.
Right. Yeah.
That's not that fight. This is Milan or Milan.
So anyway, those are my memories from this episode before I watched it.
So at least we know it's a real town.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's true. I didn't have to look that up. Okay.
Oh my God.
So in our recap, it's kind of a crazy recap. There's a lot of things that they had to insert in to remind us. So Dad is back.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. A lot of clips of Dean being angry at his death from like season 2, like his funeral and the car being smashed in.
Yep, his denial at Dad's death and denial that he's okay, and
his progression of getting more and more scared about his deal that he made, and
I don't want to go to hell. Yep,
Ruby, saying I can't save you. Yep. Sorry.
Yes, there's something coming after Sam because there's Lilith.
Yes, and then that whole clip of Sam kept that secret from Dean that there's a bigger, badder demon on the run. And after
so now they've brought the Winchesters keeping secrets from each other. Antagonism is back.
Yes.
But in the like first part of the recap, it's like the exact same recap that they did in the previous episode, minus the monsters that they killed.
Yeah.
They just changed out the monster montage. I was like, oh, come on, you guys, change it up. I mean, I know it's close to the end of the season, but keep us in line here. So the now is storming outside,
the dark and stormy
lightning. Night. Yes. Oh, a dark and stormy night. Thank you, Snoopy. Yeah, pouring inside this beautiful suburban home. Not pouring inside, pouring outside. We go inside this beautiful suburban home. Sorry
Where
about
he
that.
is pouring scotch.
Scotch. They zoom in on his wedding band. This man is shakily pouring, glass of scotch. He downs half of it, obviously looking for some sort of comfort from the glass. And the phone rings. He finally answers it, and it's a woman's voice. And it's basically one of those phone calls of one of those, like, I told you to stop calling me. Please stop calling me.
Yes.
Phone calls.
Yes, and she's also begging him to come be with me. You said you would be with me. And he says, no, I can't. My wife. And this happens a couple times of her calling him picking up, saying, please, I'm sorry, I love you, but I can't.
And he takes another drink. Phone rings again. And this time he doesn't pick it up. He just smashes the phone, yanks the cord out of the wall, and is like, done. Done with that. And because it's supernatural, the phone is still able to ring. And it's that same number on the caller ID, which I love that this phone had the little light up caller ID. But it's not a regular phone number. It's like letters. It's like a few letters and some numbers.
It's
comes
like
up like it's
SHA33.
Which, not a phone number that we recognize. But the fact that the phone is ringing gives this guy, he's like, that's it. This isn't going to stop. So he reaches into his desk drawer, pulls out a loaded gun, by the way, and basically says, all right, you win, Linda. I'll come join you. And proceeds to shoot himself in the head. And while we don't see that, we do see a beautiful supernatural blood splatter over the phone.
Yes. I loved the soundtrack in this episode. There were so many violins. Like in this moment, like after the phone rings when it's off the hook, like these violins just keep getting more and more frantic and loud. And
this isn't just the phone ringing. This is tension is happening. There was no rock music in this episode. There was no classic rock. There was no Impala radio music, no underscoring badassery. It was all very symphonic.
Yeah. Now we see the boys. They're in like this little courtyard area.
Like at a university.
Dean's sitting down and Sam comes to him and says, well, I have bad news. The professor I just spoke to doesn't know anything about your deal, assuming it's about his deal.
In the next few minutes, we learned that that's all they've been doing is researching how to break Dean's deal.
Yeah,
and nobody.
Every kind of avenue. There's like professors, witches,
shamans.
All of the things, and they have learned nothing. So Dean wants to go on this case that Bobby just called him about, which was what we just saw. Some guy who committed suicide following a string of crazy tech-related
electrical problems at his house and with his phone. Yeah. I love that they're at a university and Dean's eating a hot dog. The cart that he bought the hot dog from was called Big Dogs on Campus.
Very nice.
Little side note.
Yeah. Sam is like, we're on a case. We're on your case. We're trying to save you. And, fighting ensues. And this is finally when Dean says, at Sam's request of like, well, let's just summon Ruby. That's the last thing that we have.
We can't find Bella. We don't know
we
where
don't have the cult. We don't have anything.
We got nothing. So let's call Bella. I mean, Ruby. Sorry.
And Dean's like, she's not going to do anything because she can't. She literally told me there's nothing she can do. And then Sam is like, what? You keeping secrets from me now? When were you going to tell me this?
Yeah,
and Dean, of course, is like, well, who the pot on the kettle black?
Yeah. So off they go.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah, Sam ends it by just walking away. Yes. He's like, done. We know we're going to have more arguments about secret keeping later, so let's just get in the car and argue on the way to Ohio. I also want to point out that they did the title credits, so we already see who's going to be in this episode. Because remember last time we were like, I hope they stop doing that.
They didn't.
Not on this episode. And I was like, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's going to be in this episode, which I don't mind. I just hate that it's a spoiler. But of course, having watched the recap, it's going to be a spoiler anyway. Right. So back at the banker's house, the guy who killed himself, Sam and Dean are investigating the wife, who has had it up to here with having her husband's, suicide investigated.
Yeah,
She's not a willing participant
No.
in this. And she's like, they're like, so, what can you tell us? And she's like, he killed himself right there. Their blood, this is what I saw. I walked in, saw him dead. But she does mention that the phone was ripped out of the wall.
Which is what they perk up at. They're like, the phone?
Yeah.
Why? Why the phone?
Why would he have ripped that out of the wall?
Sam goes and checks the phone. He runs through the caller ID, sees the strange number, realizes that's when he shot himself, and then they press for more questions regarding phone calls. Are they strange?
Yeah.
Did you hear any voices? Are there staticky things going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that when she says no, Dean tries to really be power cop here.
Strong armor.
He's like, withholding information from the police is a capital offense. Sam being the educated one, being like,
no,
too far.
too far. So Dean has to reel it back in, which he does. But she does end up responding to his pressure. And she ends up telling them about, there was this one time when I heard my husband talking on the phone, and it sounded like he was talking to a woman because he said her name was Linda. She picked up the other line, and all she heard on the line was static, but she still could hear her husband talking.
Yeah.
As if there was somebody there.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
So now we get to research time in the Super 70s motel room.
Now, it's funny, I described this as the Starburst Motel with mint blue and green, teal colors and starbursts everywhere. The name of the motel is actually the Starburst Motel.
Really?
There's there's one of those little tents by the phone, those little information tents by the phone. And it was Starburst Motel. And I was like, oh, look at me being all smart. Or just observant that there's starbursts everywhere. So, of course, it would be called the Starburst Motel. But
there are also those classic 70s, maybe they're 60s, O's, circles on the bed.
Yeah, they're incomplete O's that are then linked into another incomplete.
Yes, and various thin and thick strokes.
Yes. I kind of want those.
That was I think that was just oh, it's O's because they're in Ohio. That was a little set dresser. Plunk.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk away from that one.
But it does. It does fit in with the rest of the 70s starbursty flower motif wallpaper.
Absolutely. It was cute. It was a cute room.
Classic.
I liked it. But still a little on the dingy side. You know what I mean? The way they light it and stuff. It's if they had just brightened the place up, it would have been this cute, cheery little 70s hotel. But the way they light it's it's kind of
because it wasn't really a
depressing.
bright, cheery episode. So
no.
Okay, so in their research, they find that Linda and Ben were high school sweethearts. Ben survived a drunk driver accident while Linda did not. She did not make it.
Right.
They also find out that this phone number is over 100 years old. How? I don't know how they found
Well,
that. I didn't do any kind of research. You did?
I did.
Okay, good.
I did. I totally looked it up, which I also thought was interesting that it was Dean doing the computer research this time, and it was Sam who was sitting on the bed.
Yeah.
But so the letters, the phone numbers from the 1920s all started with three letters and then some numbers. And those numbers, you had the number that was attached to your phone, but you would then call a number like that to get to an operator who would then send your number to where it went. So it all started out like that. And it wasn't until the 50s where you started to get 4 numbers. They dropped the letters and you had a 4-number phone number. And then it went to a 5 number. So it was a number and then 4 more numbers. And then in the 70s, you got the 7-digit phone numbers. And then after that, we got the 9-digit and the 10-digit numbers. So as more and more people, got phone numbers. And then instead of calling operators, doing the person-to-person phone calls is why they jumped away from the letters, because the letters were too constrictive. Right. So allowing people to skip the operator and dial directly, that's why the numbers get. Anyway, that's my little history lesson.
Very cool. No, I love that. Did phones did they always have the numbers like they do now with the letters also? It's 2 is ABC, 3 is DEF. Or did they also
n-
have letters on the side?
No, it was letters on the side. They weren't part of the there was no association with
Uh-huh.
letters to numbers on the
Uh-huh.
alphabet on the until we got to dial phones, when you actually
The
dialed
rotaries
your
and
own,
stuff?
the rotary
Mhm.
phones. That's when they started adding the letters.
Oh, fun. Very cool. See, I do remember when they changed the rule of you only needed to dial the area code if you were calling outside of your town.
Right.
So I do
Long distance.
remember just dialing 7 digits,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
without
me
the
too.
area code. The
Yeah.
area code being necessary.
Yeah. And in fact, you only dialed the area code with the one. You never just, for me, you never
Yeah,
just
yeah.
dialed. And that meant long distance, which meant you weren't supposed to be making that phone call because
Yes.
that cost money.
Yes.
Which I find funny that in this day and age, there's no such thing as a long distance call.
No, remember those calling cards that they used to, like the
Yes.
1010 something
Those,
something
yes,
that
that
John
you,
Lithgow was on the commercials for?
yeah, you had to dial, like, not only did you have to dial into that number, then you had to dial your card number, and then you got to dial the number that you wanted to call.
Yeah.
And then when your card ran out, it was like, boop. Oh, you know, yeah, it was a
You
terrible
spent
idea.
10 minutes dialing numbers, and
Dial
now
the
I can't
numbers.
do it.
And then if like you missed a number, you had to hang up and dial the whole thing over again.
Yeah. Ah, you kids have it easy nowadays.
Yeah. There's a video out there of
I've seen, I know
parents. You've
exactly
seen it?
what you're
Oh,
talking
okay.
about,
All right,
where
then I
they
won't
give the rotary phone to their kids.
and say, I'll give you $5 if you
If
can
you
make a
think-
phone call. And they can't do it. They have 10 minutes and they can't do it. They can't figure it out, which I love.
I
I
did too.
absolutely love
I
telephones.
digress.
We
So
are
now-
4 minutes into this
I know.
episode.
So Sam and Dean go off to the phone company as bigwig headquarter guys, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Ramey. I did know that reference, or I guessed it and confirmed when I looked up. That's Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi of the Evil Dead
Evil
franchise.
Dead. Yep.
And they are taken down to the basement, which is disgusting.
Oh, all things about it. All
Yeah.
things about this. I mean, not only do they like walk into some flies, which were giant, by the way.
Mhm.
They walk into this workstation, which is like a single guy who's got, computer screens in front of him.
Yeah, it kind of looked like the where Homer Simpson works, like how he's like sitting in the front of like this
Yes,
giant wall of screens and buttons, and like
Yeah.
what is this man doing in front
What
of
does
all of
this
this?
right. But this thing is also covered with like weeks of half-eaten fast food and Chinese food. There's action figures,
Bags of
you know,
chips and
knocked over soda cans. And not only that, but on these screens that he's sitting in front of, it's all porn. And, I when they walk in and disturb him, he's like, oh, I don't know how this all happened.
Yeah.
And it used to be that every once in a while you clicked on something and it would just pop up like 4,000 tabs of porn advertisements. So you sat there like going, close, close, close.
Yes. That is a real like fear and franticness that you feel.
Click, click, and that's why you don't click on things you don't know, because which unfortunately he clearly had opened up those tabs on purpose, but he was acting as if,
or at least he had opened up one tab on purpose, and then it just flooded.
So they walk in on this guy who is sweaty and clearly caught in the middle of doing something and trying to close all his porn tabs, and manages to leave one open.
Mm-hmm.
Which, here's the weird thing. 3 men walk into this room and see this guy doing this. And not one of them is like, peace out, dude. I wouldn't have walked into that room having seen what I just saw. I would have been like, nope. Just being near that. And not the porn, the actions thus.
Right.
From the porn.
Right.
But so they're like, the guy who walked him down into the basement is like, well, I'll leave you to it.
Yeah.
He leaves. Sam and Dean are like, we need your help here. And the guy says, no, I'm not going to help you. And that's when Dean steps up again. First of all, he applauds the guy for watching busty Asian beauties.
Yes.
Which is, again, in regular conversation, fine. But having standing a foot from a guy who was just pleasuring himself in front of that screen.
And it's also at work. Like, I don't want to porn shame anybody. If
No.
you're at home on your own time, you do you. Have a grand old time. But you're at work, like,
and again, these
anybody
guys just
can come
walked
walk
in.
in.
On you. 3 of them. 3 guys walked in. Yeah. So Dean, like, I think kind of Dean likes porn, which is nothing wrong with that. I like that he does a little side chat with him. He's like, go for the platinum membership of bustyasianbeauties.com. But then the guy is like, I don't need to help you. He's mad. He was interrupted.
Yeah, like, I was busy.
So this time when Dean steps in, he like gets to do the strong arm, listen, fella, you've got all these work violations here, not to mention porn. When my buddy says, you give us help, give us help. Mm-hmm. And it works this time.
Yes, they both have their scary bro faces on.
Yes.
And this guy, Stewie, he clocks it. He's like,
Stewie.
Okay.
I guess I gotta help them. And Dean's like all proud of himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Stewie runs this prehistoric number, as he called it. And while he couldn't find where it came from, he did find 10 houses that received calls from this number in the past week or so.
Yeah.
And they stand there inside of his office, like looking over this list. And Stewie kind of ushers them out because he has quote unquote work to do.
And they leave, and Dean kind of, if he could have, I think Dean would have given him a high five, like, yeah, man, go back to it. Yeah. But that's the way that left. I was like, come on, gross. Where's the condemnation for somebody doing that, like you said, at work, And
the way that they made his hair be so greasy.
It also, I was like, I wouldn't have wanted to.
I felt like I needed to take a shower after watching.
He was like this sweaty, greasy guy. And I was like, I wouldn't, like I said, I could not have been in the room with him. No, and he gets really close to Sam. He like brushes by them.
Yeah.
I'm like, the guy's gross. He's just sweaty with sex sweat and greasy hair, but all right, we'll let that one go. Done.
So next we see is a rental car, which I was like, at first, it was like, that's unusual. They don't usually get rental cars.
Yeah.
Did they finally figure out that the Impala was just too obvious? Is that
right? For the phone company, at least.
Yeah. So Sam approaches one of these addresses as a phone company executive and is just inquiring if they have encountered any other complaints like the neighborhood has found, such as dropped calls, static, strange voices, etc. And the dad says, no problems here. But then his daughter in the background kind of has this deer in the headlights look, which Sam clocks, but says, okay, thank you, and heads out.
Back to his rental car.
She, though, however, chases after him and totally calls him out. It's like, you are not a phone executive. Why would you be driving a rental car? Why are you wearing a cheap suit?
Which I was like, hey, I thought he looked nice. But she's right. He probably would have been wearing, a uniformed,
like polo shirt. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So she's like all tough and, pushy. But, Sam's like, well, she chased me out here for a reason. Yeah. So he turns into like bedside Sam.
Super bedside Sam.
Like,
yeah. If he could have like gone into a phone booth and like ripped off that suit and there was
pulled up a chair, sat her down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she managed, and he gets her to confide in him that she actually has experienced strange phone calls and that it's a strange phone call from her dead mother who's been dead for 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Very, but he does comfort her. You are not crazy. Just want you to know that you're not crazy.
No matter what anybody says.
I believe you.
Yeah. And we're ready to believe you. So Sam calls Dean. Dean's been doing his research.
And that's when I was like, oh, that's why there's a rental car, because
they had to go in different directions. But still, it's a good why didn't Dean rent the car,
Of course Dean would not have rented the car.
Well, I also love that they're like double teaming this, so it's like they have so little time left,
cover
that
ground.
time. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Dean's been doing his own research, and he was researching was it a grandmother or something who was getting phone calls from her dead husband back from the war, like back from the Korean War. of course, it's Dean who falls into like some sort of sex scandal, sexting or phone sex.
Well, I think he says
comment
that she was like having phone sex with her dead husband.
Her dead husband. No,
Yes.
I know. I just think it's funny that it's Dean
that
has the sex
that
connection.
One.
He gets that call. He gets the sex call. But of course, as soon as he says the word, he's like, talk about necrophilia. As soon as he said that, he's like bumped into by this like smoking hot girl.
Yeah.
Who, all she hears is necrophilia and is like, huh?
Yeah.
And walks away. And of course, he horn dogs and he turns and he's like, yeah, all right, nice.
Yeah,
I'll take it, even though I missed that one. Basically, he didn't find anything other than there's people who are talking to dead loved ones.
Yeah. So what's going on? Let's like meet up at the hotel. And when they hang up, Dean gets like an immediate call back, and he picks it up, and it's Dad.
It's John. Dean, Dad? And cut to commercial.
Yes.
Of course it's Dad, because everyone's getting phone calls from, dead loved ones. Mm-hmm. So it's not, for me, it wasn't like, dun, dun, dun. I was just waiting for it.
Yeah.
So it's like they could have worked this episode slightly differently, that it would be like maybe this phone call came first and then they went and,
I wonder if I hadn't seen his credit in the beginning, if I would have guessed it. And I know that he was in the recap a lot, but there were a lot of other things in the recap, and that just because he's mentioned in the recap doesn't mean he's going to show up, because they've tricked us before.
Yes.
Yes, so I do wonder if I hadn't seen Jeffrey Dean Morgan, if I would have been surprised.
Yeah, maybe that's it too, because I wasn't surprised, and then I was bummed out that I wasn't surprised.
Right. Back at the motel, Sam and Dean are in disbelief that Dad is called Dean, but Sam is more wary than Dean is. He's kind of more trepidatious about it. He's just like, well, what did he say? What do you think's going on here? And Dean is just so desperate to talk to Dad again that he's even like, what do I say when he calls back? And then he leaves in frustration because all Sam could think of was, hello? Say hello?
Yeah. So, it's another argument because, Dad, Sam and Dean don't see the same, even in this circumstance.
Yeah.
They don't see the same things.
Yeah.
Because it's Dad.
Yeah.
So Dean leaves. That's the way he solves his arguments. Yes. Sam researches on the internet, if anything, like, why would anything supernatural be happening in this town?
Yeah. What's the deal with ghosts calling on the phone?
Yeah. But he doesn't find anything. Dean comes back and Sam says, I haven't found anything. Dean makes fun of Sam, in the way Dean does, which makes fun of his education. And, of course, being smart and studying means you didn't have sex in college. But Dean, with his uneducation and all the sex, manages to find some information about the town. Just by going to the motel's pamphlet rack that has like things to do in Milan.
all the touristy things, all the cheesy things that they're proud of.
Right.
So Milan, Ohio, which I am going to call it Milan because that is the correct pronunciation, happens to be the birthplace of Thomas Edison.
Which is true.
Which has the spirit phone.
I tried to research this.
Hold on, let's get into like their little museum trip first, and then we can talk about the spirit phone, because we haven't actually. No, it's okay, because I have stuff about the spirit phone too. Okay, so it's the birthplace of Thomas Edison, which also has a museum on Thomas Edison, which contains the spirit phone. You can't see me on a podcast, but I did the little quotey fingers because the boys go on a little museum tour with one of those overly cheery, enthusiastic museum
overly
tour guides.
Know-it-all too.
Yes, with a lot of quotey fingers.
And we're walking, and we're walking. I just love this part. She's like, and we're not touching that. That I liked.
Yes. So she says that, this is Thomas Edison's spirit phone because he was supposedly an occultist. And so he built the spirit phone to communicate with the dead.
Quote, fingers.
Quote. So
Thomas Edison didn't create, quote, a spirit phone. He did have the idea, though, that he wanted to record voices or sounds of people from the past, because he actually did create the original phonograph. He was able to record sound on a wax cylinder. He actually recorded Mary Had a Little Lamb. So he was one of the first inventors of the phonograph, like being able to record on records. And then somebody else took it and made it, flat records and stuff like that. So he took the idea of the telephone and wanted to try to record voices from the past, not necessarily a spirit telephone for speaking to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my only ... Maybe that was the supernatural spin on this particular item, is that he actually was able to create a telephone for speaking to the dead.
So I found that he did build a spirit phone, whether it was something to communicate with the dead or maybe just capturing spirity voices, but they specifically call it a spirit phone, that he built one. Oh, supposedly you can actually contact the dead. It was owned by a museum in San Diego, but then a collector bought it off of eBay for $5,000. The producers and creative team contacted this guy to see if they could rent it for this episode, but it was going to be like too much. Like the guy wanted like too much for it, or like it was going to be like all the shipping costs and stuff, and they said, it isn't feasible. So instead they went out into a radio museum in Washington and just used something that kind of looks similar. But the spirit phone does exist.
That's it's interesting, because any pictures that I saw of Thomas Edison was with his phonograph recording device.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked, if you were to take what they showed on Supernatural and stretched it out, it kind of looks like that.
Okay.
But as far as I read, now there's no disputing the occult side, the occultist side of Thomas Edison. There's people who tried to delete that from his books, like they published a book from Thomas Edison, but left out the chapter of his life where he full on talks about wanting to communicate with the dead.
I see.
And then somebody else published the original book, and it had that final chapter in it, with his words talking about his desire to do that. Now, this is what the internet says. How do I know if any of this is true? But okay, so you say the spirit phone exists. Yeah, one book says yes, another book says no.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, the boys...
But there is something that a guy bought for $5,000 that claims to be a spirit phone, but it was in a museum in San Diego. So okay. I feel like if it was in a museum, it's legit-ish,
Yeah, right. Right. It started somewhere.
Yes. Okay, so the boys, they linger behind from the tour. They do not go walking, and we're walking, and we're walking. Instead, they, hover their EMF detector over it. There's nothing there.
Okay.
How does it work? It's not even plugged in. Maybe it's with the radio signals. I don't know.
But then they say, well, maybe it is Dad, though. Since they don't have any proof that it's not, they're going with the assumption maybe it was Dad.
Right. But Sam still has questions. He's like, why, I don't know how this works. Why is it working now? Like, why all of a sudden are ghosts starting to contact their loved ones? I just don't, I'm not like fully into this idea yet.
So I want to go back to just like 2 pages, but it's only taking me 30 seconds. When they were first talking about how do we research that phone number, the SHA33, Dean says, what's making people want to reach out and touch somebody? Do you know what that's from?
Mm-mm.
That was a jingle for the phone company back in the 70s. And it was like either a Ma Bell or a Pacific Bell. I forget which phone company it was, but the jingle went, reach out and touch someone. Reach out and make someone smile, or something like that. But reach out and touch someone was the longest running like jingle for you should use your phone.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember that. Reach out and touch someone. So I just wanted to put that out there, that when Dean said that, I was like, oh, I know that quote.
I know what that is. It's a terrible jingle, though.
But it was so popular. I
believe it, and it makes sense in context, but
filthy, dirty phone jingle.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought that
It's
would make you insert jingle here.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
back at the motel later that night, Sam is asleep. Dean is awake at the table, just staring at the phone.
He's got a cup of coffee. He is waiting for this phone to ring.
Mm-hmm. And when it does, like it doesn't even get to finish ringing. He like picks it up.
Yep.
And it's Dad.
How do I know it's really you?
Yeah, Dean like just shows like the barest little glimpse of skepticism there. And
then,
even Dad is like, well, you can't really know for sure, but why did you make this deal?
Yeah.
Like he knows all about the deal. He knows the terms of the deal, that Sam would die if he tries to get out of it. And he knows that a demon holds his contract. And not only does he know that, but the demon is there in Milan.
Yeah. I'm just like, Dad says, how could you do this? I'm like, you did the exact same thing. You did the exact same thing. So, okay, there's that. And then, to prove that he's Daddy's like, you're my boy. I love you. And I'm like, what? Like, this is so anti-John, So I mean, literally, you can't see it, but I was pressing hard on the paper. I was like, what? And Dean still follows it.
Yeah.
Like Dean still like that red flag in my head, but not.
Oh
Dean's.
Yeah, the spidey sense is not working
because it's Dad. Well, because he thinks it's Dad. He wants it to be Dad. It's not that he thinks it's Dad. He wants it to be Dad.
Yeah.
And Dad just happens to know about the demon deal and that the demon who made the deal is in town.
Mm-hmm.
Just happens to be in that town where the ghosts are calling loved ones. But okay. So he's going to try to break the deal. Even, this is what I love. They talk about the deal and how the deal can kill Sammy if they try to break the deal. So now they're going to try to break the deal with the demon. I mean, two sentences apart. This could kill Sammy. Let's go do it. I'm going to point out my anger at that particular scene. So next thing we see.
Yes. Next thing we see is the teenage daughter whose name is Lainey. She's IMing with her friends, and then all of a sudden she gets another one from her mom. And the screen name is, again, that same phone number, the SHA33. And she's reminding, it's like, did you do the thing that I asked you to do? And Lainey's confused. She's like, but I went to go see you at the cemetery.
Yeah, and you weren't
but
there.
that wasn't enough. Mom says, no, I went more.
Lainey's like, I don't know. And then it starts with what does she say? It's like, come to me. She's like, I need you to come to me.
Something.
Does she say that in the message?
I don't think she says it in the message. That's when, like, after this whole exchange, it just like floods the screen. But here, like, Lainey is starting to get a little scared, because she is kind of realizing what it is her mom wants her to do, or it's something more dangerous than just going to see her at the cemetery.
Right. She says, Mom, I don't think I can't do this or something.
Yeah, I'm scared.
And her screen goes, zzz. Yeah. So her chat screen goes away, but then her computer camera turns on and is facing her, obviously, because it's her computer screen. But we see behind her, like, this figure appear and start walking towards Lainey. And Lainey is like transfixed, like, because she sees this. This creeped me out because she's getting closer and closer and closer. And then just before her mom touches her on her shoulder from behind, Lainey like turns and the mother's not in the room. She was on the screen only. And Lainey like turns off the computer. So she thinks. Right. That freaked me out.
Yeah, that was really scary. It was kind of like the mirror thing, like when the things in the mirror are not doing what you are doing.
Yes.
But this was a camera that was seeing something that isn't actually there.
And that's a voice. That's not just a voice on the phone. That was
a visual.
Like a visual. And I wrote down, no.
So Lainey backs away from the computer, and that's when the computer just starts typing, come to me, come to me, come to me, over and over and over and over and over and over again.
It's never a good thing when your computer does that. It's like when you lean on the keyboard.
Yeah. So the next day, Dean has already filled in Sam about his phone call with Dad, and Dean has been doing research. Where he's like finding all of these weather reports of like demonic lightning storms of all the locations they've been in the past 2 weeks.
There's all these demon omens that have been, this demon's been following me everywhere I've gone.
Yeah. But Sam doesn't remember any of these storms that they were there, and Dean is pushing back. He's like, well, you're not a meteorologist, are you? And he's convinced.
He's very gung-ho.
Yes, he's just convinced that this demon is tailing him because he's a big deal, and he's convinced that this exorcism his dad gave him will work. Not only exorcise it, but kill it.
Kill it, yeah.
And Sam is like, I mean, it is an exorcism. Because I looked into it, Bobby looked into it. We're doing our due diligence.
We're listening to you. Yeah.
But there's just no proof that it can kill the demon.
And I'm like, Dean is usually smarter than this. Yeah. And we've gotten so far where Sam and Dean have been listening to each other. They've been actually working together. And now in this moment, once again, like Dean I don't understand. He's desperate and it is John, but I'm just like, come on, it's the dad fight, so they have the dad fight again. Sam's being logical. Dean's being like blindly emotional.
Yeah. Sam says, listen, I'm going to go see Lainey because she got really freaked out last night and I just want to make sure things are okay. And then Dean just gets mad and starts spouting off, when you get mad and you say the things that you don't mean.
Yeah.
And
a lot of them are just stupid things.
They're just so stupid, yeah. Because he's basically calling Sam like a pedophile. It'd be like, yeah, go hang out with Jailbait. Watch out for Chris Hansen of the Dateline. No.
Oh no.
The guy who catch Predator kind of.
Yeah, he would
but he had his own show.
Oh no, but it was a Dateline. Yeah, because he would always show up in the kitchen and like catch the guy.
Yeah, who was like meeting up with the
teenage girls.
Dateline NBC in the segment to catch a predator. Okay,
so look at you.
All of that was right. Which is just like that is not even close to what's going on. He's just trying to like make sure that this young girl is okay from a ghost.
Right. And Dean's just being petulant. I mean, that is like 100% petulant. And
yes. And he thinks Sam is he's still just sticking it to dad. It's like, oh, you're still not getting along with him even after he's dead. And Sam's like, no. I just want to know what's actually going on here because we haven't figured out the source of this mystery. Like there's it's still like floofy and there's people committing suicide and like
the phone thing's still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's figure this part out.
There's no hard proof.
Right. And he doesn't get egged on by Dean, which is great. Because normally he would have like been fighting back and he doesn't. He doesn't fight back at all. He's just like, stay here, please.
Yes.
I need to go check on Lainey. It's like we can continue this fight later, but I really have to go check on this real problem.
Yeah.
Which is Lainey.
Yeah.
And he begs Dean. He's like, please don't leave.
Yeah.
Stay put. Please. And for the moment, Dean does. He goes and sits back down,
Yeah, he sits back down, but I felt like his face and his reactions, he felt very betrayed by Sam. Because he even says, it's like, this is, oh, yeah, thanks for being so excited that I found a way to save my life.
Right.
Now we're at Lainey's and she's told Sam, like, okay, here's what happened. First she wanted me to go see her and I thought that meant, go visit her grave. But then she was telling me to do bad things, like really bad, scary things, like to kill myself, take all the
sleeping pills in Dad's, medicine cabinet.
Yeah. And at the same time, her little brother gets a phone call
in his room.
Yeah, gets a phone call on his little toy phone.
Toy phone that's not connected to anything.
No.
It's a toy phone, which also I thought interesting, has caller ID.
Yeah.
Because it showed up, his little toy phone rings, the SHA33 shows up. Little boy goes and answers the phone. It's like one of those phones that teaches you how to dial 911, and he says, hello. It's so cute. He says his name, like, hi, this is Simon, whatever his name is. Greenfield speaking, which is how you're taught to answer the phone as a kid. And then you hear him go, oh, hi, mommy. Little kids and the hi, mommy. Ugh.
No. And then says, yeah, I want to see you. Where are you?
Yeah.
Okay, cut. At the same time, Dean also gets a phone call from his dad. And Dad has the address of where the demon is.
So back to Sam and Lainey, one of the things she ends up saying is like, so not only did she try to get me to take sleeping pills, she was trying to get me to come to her. And Sam kind of puts his hand up and is like, wait, did she say that? Did you say, what did she say exactly? And she says, she told me, come to me. This actually scared me. This little take to Sam, because Sam, when Sam hears those words, come to me, you see a look on his face of recognition.
Oh yeah, because at first, they're both kind of like, why would your mother tell you to do that? That's
right.
I don't know your mother, but that seems pretty out of character, even for like a ghost, to do.
Right.
So he's just like, what the fuck is going on? And then once she says that, it's like, snap.
Yep. And he says, Lainey, that's not your mom. And it's like, oh, that's one of those moments of like, the call is coming from inside the house.
Yes.
There's all this mystery built up to what's going on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's not what you think it is. It's intense, immediate danger.
And then we cut to Dean, who has broken his promise and left the motel room, fully armored up, ammoed up.
Yep.
Goes into an empty house and like starts the whole rigmarole of devil's traps and
making
holy
water,
et cetera, et cetera.
And in the meantime, we see Simon, the little boy, walking across a busy street.
Yes. So Sam is like leaving the house and he's giving Lainey instructions, to like, don't look at anything, don't answer anything, don't do anything. And she notices that Simon is gone.
And we see him basically froggering, across this street. And so far he makes it across one side with not getting hit by a car. And then what we see is, of course, a giant truck barreling down the other side of the street, distracted driver. And just as Simon steps into the path of this speeding giant tow truck, Sam is able to like make this diving tackle catch, pull the little boy out of the way. And the little boy at the last second actually kind of seems stunned, because while he was walking through traffic, originally he just was like just walking, like kind of in a daze almost. And just before he's hit by the truck, you see his face kind of snap out like, and Sam rescues him. So little boy obviously was told by the ghost or told by the thing on the phone to step into traffic.
Yeah.
The tow truck, who did like glance up just in time to basically not, be able to stop himself from hitting this little boy, drives on.
I know, that's what I thought too. It's like, doesn't even stop to like check and see if everything's okay.
Yeah. So the next thing we see is Sam and Dean are on the phone to each other. My question is, who called who? Who called who in that moment? We don't see it. We don't see anyone place the call. We don't see anybody pick up the phone. Sam and Dean are just now talking.
I think that's because of something later. I think that Sam called Dean to tell him what he found out, which is that it's a croqueta. Is that a sandwich?
Sandwich? Which does sound good. But again, I'm always hungry after I watch Supernatural because now I am starving. Croqueta. And Dean was like, what? A sandwich?
Is that a sandwich? No, it's a scavenger who can mimic loved ones and whispers, come to me, and, lives in the darkness and swallows up your soul.
Your soul. So I looked up croqueta. The mythology of which I was like, it's kind of a weird word, but it actually is. Wait, I wrote it down. Valerie, come to it.
Okay, I looked up
arrows. Too. Okay. My summary is it's a mythical dog wolf or lion wolf from India. It doesn't bark, but it can use a false voice to lure unsuspecting humans or animals as prey.
Yeah, that's basically what I had too. It was like a hyena-like beast.
Yeah.
And I found that it was from India and Ethiopia, that kind of area. But there's not a lot of lore about it. And even the creative team were like, should we even use this monster? There's like not a whole lot to use here. But we need the monster to do this. So I guess it's got to be the croqueta,
Yeah. So they took away the lion animal beast part of it and just made it a.
Well, it's also, I think they said it's evolved to a point where it can now change into human form. And I don't know if that was a supernatural thing or
I could have stopped reading after a certain
quote
point
unquote real thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what they said was their supernatural spin was that it evolved with the technological times, meaning it can now use the phone and
Gotcha.
technology in that way rather than just like hiding out in the woods. So that was like their spin on it.
Well, the thing I read is that it spent so much time watching humans that it just developed over time that it could do these things.
It also says here that there are some legends that say if you place the striped eyeball of a slain crocata under your tongue, it'll give you clairvoyant powers. And because of this, their eyes fetch a pretty penny. So the crocata are being hunted into extinction.
Right. I also read that they have like jewels for eyes that can help bedazzle you into, like the snake from Jungle Book. So I can see where this would start to split off. My question was the living in filth and the flies, because Dean says on the phone, crocata, don't they live in filth? The flies.
The phone company, that gross guy.
Company. Yeah. And so when I was researching, I was like, it doesn't say anything about the filth factor. So I think that's another supernatural spin.
Right.
Yeah. So Sam's like, you're right. Phone company. I'm off. So Sam heads off to the phone company.
Yeah. Finds himself in a misty back alley of the phone company. There's always a misty back alley somewhere.
And he's like creeping along, like sneaking around, looking into windows. I'm like, what are you doing?
He's doing the creep.
Yeah. So it turns out he does happen to creep upon Stewie, who's leaving for the day and who's parked at the end of this back alley.
Yes.
Tackles, shoves Stewie up against the car from behind and is like, I know who you are. I know what you're doing. Stewie, who has no idea who's behind him.
No,
what's going on. Thinks it's a customer complaining about, too expensive, charging for a caller ID, which again, back in the day, every little thing you were charged for,
it's the same today, but different.
It's just a package deal now. They just call it all inclusive.
Yeah. But no, he's like pleading for his life with offers of, free call waiting, free long distance.
Anything. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's like, is this a thing that happens often? You get threatened by
by like disgruntled customers. Yeah. And Sam like starts to figure it out. He's like, oh, wait, this isn't how a crocata would be.
Right.
Up behind Sam was the guy's name? Clark?
Yes.
The guy who let them into the building the first time?
Yes.
Shows up and knocks out Sam with a baseball bat. And I love this. Stewie's like, yeah, I don't teach you from messing with the phone company. Yeah. And he's like, thanks, man. Thanks, Clark. And then Clark like bashes poor Stewie in the head too.
I know.
Poor Stewie. So he was just a masturbating,
nerd.
Greasy, yeah, but not a bad guy.
Yeah. So Sam finds himself yet again tied to a chair, facing somebody else tied to a chair, who is pleading for his life against the monster. Sam joining in is just like, just let him go. It's fine. It's just leave him alone. And then he's forced to watch as Clark Cotta, as I was called.
I'm sorry. Did you wait for that one?
So long. As Clark stabs Stewie and kills him.
So again, tied to a chair, again, forced to watch the murder of somebody else tied to a chair.
Yep.
I even put that in all caps again. And they didn't even wait an episode. That exact same thing just happened.
I know.
Just happened. Come on, Supernatural. Yeah. Come on. So Clark stabs Stewie, and then very clumsily, like semi mounts his dead body and like opens up his, giant crocata mouth with teeth. It was like, abnormally large, and like sucks the soul out of poor Stewie.
Yes.
Which I was like, what? I mean, I get it. If he's a soul sucker, why did he have these giant gnarly teeth? And why was he like climbing all over Stewie?
Yeah, I felt like he was kind of channeling a little bit of what's his name? Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black, where he's like that weird bug, like he's a bug inside of a meat suit, but like he had like very bug-like actions.
Wow,
so he kind of looked like almost like a praying mantis. I don't know. I felt like that was a choice that the actor made of like, this is what the monster looks like. It's like this weird kind of hand thing.
To me, it looked like an actor struggling with another actor who was tied to a chair on wheels. It's like, how do I get his soul without him rolling away when I...
that could have been it too. But I do feel like the shape of his hands and arms, and maybe he wasn't sure what his special effects were going to look like.
Yeah.
So, and then also like he does a few things where he's like turning his head really fast, and you hear like the neck crunch sounds.
Yeah, he does.
Which also made me. That's what made me think of the Men in Black bug guy. Was Vincent D'Onofrio
in something that he's not completely comfortable being inside?
Right.
Yeah.
And they never really talk about like what the true form of a crocata is supposed to look like. So maybe this was the actor being like, maybe he's a giant bug type of thing.
You were so much more sympathetic than I am. I was like, that's just bad. I was like, I'm like, that's just bad. He's clumsy, he's clunky. The neck thing I get, because that's kind of one of those like, oh, that's better. Everyone feels better after their neck cracks. So when you throw in a neck crack, it's like, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing I'm supposed to be doing.
See, I thought that it wasn't a like, oh, that feels good. It was more of a, this is the creature's like movements and his habits. Okay. But I love watching what's a word when like a human is kind of animalistic in a way? Anthropomorphism.
Ah, yes. Okay. Good word.
So I love when actors like do that kind of thing.
Sure.
I've also done it before. I mean, many, many years ago, but on stage, like I had to be a bird type of thing.
Yeah.
I was a bird. I was a bird in Seussical. So I was just like, how would a bird walk? It's a very stupid, douchey actor thing to do.
It was acting 101. I remember having to do those exercises, and I hated them. I hated doing that. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. I remember one time I was trying to be a mountain lion, but my knees kept popping because I was crawling around on the floor to the point where I was like, I can't. I just can't get past the crack.
I would so much rather act like an animal than a human. Maybe that's how it is.
It's why I work backstage and not on stage.
Okay, so anyway, this guy, he's either a bad actor or trying to be a praying mantis. I don't know. But he, he does the whole Dementor thing by sucking out Stewie's soul.
And then proceeds to monologue us to death.
Yes, for the rest of the episode. So I think this is where he says something like, yeah, I can not only make calls, but I can take them. Which is
thus how
Sam figures out, it's like, oh, you were Dean. You led me here.
Right. So my question is, though, in that moment, if the SHA33 is the moniker, like anytime he does that, so who didn't look at their phone? Like I guess he intercepted Dean's call, and so that Sam wouldn't have seen that his call didn't go to Dean.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would say, because once you dial the phone, or even just like the speed dial, I'm sure he's got a speed dial,
Right. Gotcha.
So then Clark kind of puts his hands on top of the switch box, I guess you could call it, and starts making like surgy sounds, and he does this weird little neck cracks.
Thing.
And says, oh, I'm just killing your brother, or maybe some other guy. I don't know.
Who knows? We'll see what happens first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then this other guy he's speaking of, who's in a locker. He's maybe like a
end of the day, getting ready to go home after work. Gets a phone call from a little girl, and he's like, I thought you said you weren't gonna call me anymore. And she's like, oh, I know, Daddy. And it's a little girl, Daddy. But the guy who killed me wants to kill you, and he's waiting for you at home.
Yeah.
So Daddy gets a terrible phone call.
So Sam, with Clark,
monologuing.
Sam is goading him into monologuing because he's sitting there fiddling with his hands, trying to loosen up the ties on the back of his
with
chair.
Phone cord, by the way. Great.
So he's kind of leading him into monologuing. He's just like, "What? That was really clever. Using Dad. How did you do that?"
Right.
And Clark goes on. It's like, well, I mean, you think that everything digital gets deleted. It doesn't. So
once I figured out you guys were hunters, I looked at Dean's phone, then I looked at your phone, then I looked at Dad's phone, and
emails, voicemails, like all this information I can use.
And so back at the house that Dean has been devil trapping and getting ready to receive this demon, he's waiting and basically waiting to like leap out at this guy. But the dad knows that there's somebody in his house waiting for him, like bursts in full Rambo with a shotgun and is able to like knock Dean down. Dean drops his holy water so he can't do the splashy splash, and they start to duke it out.
Yeah. Dad like went in through the back door, which Dean was not expecting, and he was also not expecting a shotgun.
Right? He wasn't. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they are just like, Dad's fighting for his daughter's life, and now Dean is fighting for his life.
Yeah.
It's a pretty substantial fight going on.
It is, especially when once Dean gets the upper hand and just starts like kicking the ever living shit out of him.
Yeah. Cut to the phone company.
Yes.
Still monologuing.
Yes. And just how ecstatic he is about the world of technology and the modern age, because he used to, just wait in the woods and hope that somebody would come by. And sometimes he'd have 1 to 2 souls, maybe a year.
Yeah.
But
and now he can just, whenever he wants.
Yeah, just pick up a call. And there's a little moral lesson that he gives us, which is, technology gives you so many connections, but you're more alone than ever.
Yeah. Cut to Sam over here, Dean over here, both fighting their own demons, so to speak, but still fighting the same guy, which is kind of interesting that they're fighting.
I like the cross cuts that were going on, because they're doing the same fight. Because Sam gets loose, he's like, "Great, that's enough monologuing. I'm good."
You gave me enough time.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And goes after this guy who has a stabby stab, knife, because he just killed Stewie with it.
Yeah.
And Dean is fighting this crazed father who has just got nothing to lose. But still fighting the same guy. I was like, hey, Valerie, good point. And so Dean finally does get the upper hand over this dad after all the wailing on him, and manages to take away another gun he found on the dad. The dad came loaded. He shotgun, other gun. He was ready to do business. And I found it interesting that it wasn't until the dad, kind of stands up and he's standing over the devil's trap, and Dean has started reading the killing mantra or whatever that's supposed to kill the demon,
the special exorcism kind of
thing. And the dad isn't responding, and he kind of staggers out of the devil's trap, and Dean's like so 2 things aren't happening. 1, you stepped out of the trap, and 2, you're not responding to this exorcism. I found it interesting that Dean didn't notice that this guy also came at him with a shotgun and a gun, that all these very undemony things. Yeah. That still didn't click in Dean's head. He was so focused on this guy being a demon that he didn't read the room.
Yeah.
But he does finally come to the realization that this guy is not a demon.
Yes. It's all of those things, and also that he's like, why did you kill did you do this to my daughter too? when you killed her. So
Yeah.
it's like all now starting to be like, oh, whoops. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, not only whoops, but oh my God, this man's daughter was murdered.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of he did actually soak in a little bit of empathy from this
Yes.
this guy. And he
Yes.
finally says, I'm sorry. And not, I'm sorry, I didn't kill your daughter, which I thought was kind of weird. But it was like, I'm sorry, Beat. I didn't kill your daughter.
Yeah. And the guy is like, but what are you doing here? I don't know.
I don't know. I have no answers for anything.
Right. And just before that scene, Sam and Clark have been like duking it out, you know, each trading the upper hand here and there. And then finally they're at that standstill, you know, where they're like
struggling over the knife and like, is it going to plunge into Sam? Is it going to plunge into Clark?
Yep. And then Sam finally like pushes him back into a pegboard behind him where again
it's like a cable rack or something. Yeah,
I don't know, but there's again the second time in a row or second episode in a row, there's a sharp pointy thing that impales somebody in the back of the head.
Drills him in the back of the head. Yep, blood out the mouth, and he's just, you know, resting against the hook on the pegboard. Oh, yes. So again, Supernatural. Come on, writers. 2 episodes in a row, same death, same setup.
Yeah.
Gonna work on it. So back at the motel, Dean is tending to his wounds that the dad gave him. Sam walks in, also looking like he's been, 10 rounds with.
I like that they admire each other's face beatings.
I was like, they both got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
Both got their asses kicked.
And, they've already gone over the case, obviously. And then they both apologize. Sam says, I'm really sorry that it wasn't actually Dad. And Dean is like, I'm sorry that I really
fought you on this. I didn't listen to you. I really fought you hard.
Yeah.
But then he also says, but I was really scared. I'm really scared.
Yeah.
And I was willing to believe anything.
Yeah.
And there's other sweet things that he says in there, but he ends it with, I guess only I can get myself out of this. I have to stop depending on the being saved at the last minute by someone like Dad coming to my rescue, or, the cult coming to the rescue. I have to do this. Only I can do this. And Sam leans in and is like, yeah, but I can help you too.
And me.
And Dean puts an end to this chick flick moment, which I was like, no, it could have been a chick flick moment. But he's like, and me. That's all you have to say?
Yeah.
And me. But Sam follows in with, what, you want me to read you a poem? So the chick flick moment is broken. The tension is broken. They've both given their forgivenesses to each other for this particular transgression.
Yep.
Dean offers Sam a beer and clicks on the TV, and everything is right with the world for now.
Yep.
The end. A little note, a little observation. The bed that the boys were both sitting on separate beds. Had Jared actually laid down on the bed he was on, his feet would have hung off the end of that by like a solid foot and a half. And not only is he just so tall, but also, on sets and stuff, things are built smaller.
Yeah.
Because you can play with, angles and stuff to make it look like forced perspective that things are bigger than they actually are, to give more room for like cameras and blocking and stuff like that. I just want to, as this pull away, because the camera was kind of up high and on an angle, I was like, those beds are really small compared to the men who are sitting on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things about this episode. I was disappointed, for the kind of the repeat nature of circumstances. The repeat arguments, about Dad and about keeping secrets and, those things. But I'm always taken aback by how quickly either one of the characters at any given time will throw away what they know about each other and what they know about the family to go do this one thing that we know is the wrong way. I'm like, why? Again, the idea that, if we try to break the deal, Sami dies. Let's go break the deal. You know?
Well, I don't know. That's a hard argument to make because they've been trying to make the deal or break the deal for the entire season, knowing this. Like Dean told Sam pretty early on, right? It's like, if I try to break this deal, then you die.
Right.
And it's always been like, well, let's find a way where we can fix both of these things, right?
Yeah, but you would think that, like Sam says, we don't have any solid proof. We don't have any evidence yet.
Yeah.
You know, like, this isn't a done deal. You would think that Dean would also be wanting to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before they actually tried to break the deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's all. I mean, I get it. I understand the emotion and the impetus behind it, but I'm still like, but.
Well, I wonder if Dad off camera had said, this will solve all of the problems. This exorcism will, you know, kill the demon and break if the demon's dead, then the contract is dead. Right. So I don't know. Yeah. That would be my only explanation for why Dean would be so gung-ho on saving his life without any regards to anything else. Mm-hmm. This also reminded me of the episode, maybe it was last season, where the shoe was on the other foot, where it was the angels one, where Sam was like so desperate to believe in angels. Because they could save his soul. Like he wanted to believe so badly that he was not destined for evil. Right. That he was willing to be like, yep, ignoring all of the clues.
All the textbook,
all the
hunting.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think like when you're stuck in a corner, or backed into a corner rather, you know, you're willing to believe anything, do anything in order to get out of that corner.
Right.
So I don't blame Dean for just believing it's Dad, period. It's like, this is Dad, end of story. He's giving me all the right information. These are the instructions I need to follow, because that's what I've done my whole life. I don't need to think about it. And B, my life is on the line.
Right. And also, everybody else in this town is getting phone calls from the dead, so why wouldn't I?
Right. Yeah, there's that. It's like, why can't I get a little bit of respite and
right.
relief and comfort from, you know, my dead father. Good episode otherwise. I kind of would, now I know that there isn't like a lot of background on the Kokata, so they couldn't really go more into it.
Yeah.
And also they are kind of moving away from the monster of the week. Like, that hasn't really happened a lot this season, which is okay, but I do kind of like the old, you know, the research. I'm like, oh, this is the monster, this is what it does, this is where it's from, those kinds of research scenes.
No, I like that too, especially when you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, again, like the death loop thing, I was ready. Clearly I bought into that, the death echo. I was like, oh yeah, that echoes, we've known about those for years.
Moving right along towards the end of the season, which I can't believe there's only 2 episodes left.
What's the next one?
Okay, so next episode is Time is on My Side.
Time is on my side. Which again, if you hear that song playing, leave the room. That's never a good omen.
Okay.
No, it's serious. And in scary movies, whenever you hear that song, something evil is happening.
Oh, really?
Yep.
No, I don't think I've ever heard it in a scary movie. But...
kind of like in Final Destination, at least in the first movie, anytime John Denver played, you knew that someone was going to die, which I was like, hey, that's not fair to John Denver. But yeah, now I'm going to have to look that up, the Time on My Side. But okay. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the song, and it has more to do with the fact that maybe Dean
time is on someone's side, right?
Maybe.
Maybe it doesn't really look like it. This is another one, just like
like, this is where. Okay, sorry.
No, this is another one where I'm like, wait, what? I mean, I know, like, I remember one big plot line of this episode, but not the other part of it. So I'm not gonna spoil anything. Or,
okay. I was like, I want to know.
Do you? I can.
No. I need to go and watch it. No. But I leaned in. I was like, yes.
Right. Well, there is like a big I do know that there's a big thing that happens,
Okay.
but the vehicle in which that makes that big thing happen, I don't remember.
Okay.
Is that?
Right now, yes, yeah, but it's not ringing any bells for
Right.
me. No,
Well,
I'm sure
I
as soon
think
as I
you will
watch the
like it. I'll
recap.
just say that. I think that you will like this episode. So thank you so much for joining us this week. You can find us, follow us, rate us anywhere you can find podcasts. You can also find us on social media. We are at Salt and Burn This everywhere. You can find us on YouTube also at Salt and Burn This if YouTube is your preferred method of audio intake. No video, sorry. We're not ready for that yet.
No, I was gonna say that's gonna take a lot more prep. That means
Oh man, we gotta set up like a studio space and lighting and
no, I gotta get out of the closet.
So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week for Time is on My Side. Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.